So today I'm gonna make a bacteriophage. I like to recreate this one that I made last year. Let's just start by deleting the cube. I want to create the core, the body first, which is like a cylinder that is decreasing in diameter. Let's add a torus first, making it a bit smaller. We go to edit mode. Let's get to the top view, select 3 or this button here to be able to select faces. So now start and hold down Alt so we can select all the surfaces around that loop cut. Hold down Shift to do multiple selection, and then just select every other 2 faces. I know a trick to quickly select every other one, but I don't know how to do every other 2, so I'm just gonna do it manually. Okay, now normally if you try to extrude, it's gonna all go in one direction. To avoid that, press for extrude we press E on the keyboard, but hold down Alt and then press E, so you get this menu, and then select this one, extrude faces along normals, and then use your mouse to extrude like this. I think this is good. Okay, and then exit the edit mode, go back to object mode. If you shade a smooth and then add subdivision surfaces to this, maybe 2, that should look good. Let's keep a copy of a duplicated, Shift D, and move a copy and just put that on a far away, so because we're gonna modify that and use it again later. So for this one, and I think we can just apply this. Next thing, we need to apply an array modifier, so like that, but instead of going along the x-axis, we want to go up along the z-axis. So change that to 0 and change this one to 1, but we don't want them to touch each other, so increase it by, I don't know, 1.2 should be good. And if you increase the count, you're gonna get more of it. But one thing, I want this to decrease in diameter as it goes up. So for that, let's add a plane axis, empty plane axis. And here, if we go back to our array modifier and check this box, object offset, and select empty, so you're gonna see that it's changes the scale of each of the array objects, but this is too big. So if we scale this, it's gonna change. But first, let's increase our count because we need much more than that. Maybe and maybe scale the object as well, and then again select the empty and scale it like that. I think we still need more of these. Maybe go up to 20. Okay. And I feel like the top one is, I don't want the decrease to be so dramatic. So maybe scale a little bit more. Yeah, that's better. And then we can also just scale the torus itself. Okay, now if you're done with this and you're happy, you can just apply the modifier and be done with it. Oh, maybe I add a few more. Okay. And okay, I think it's good now. I apply that, and next thing we need to do, we need to add a cylinder in the middle. If you apply the modifier, you can get rid of the plain axis. I'm just gonna delete it, and then add a cylinder. I'm gonna scale it down like that, and then scale along the z-axis to increase the height. Then we also need to decrease the diameter of this cylinder proportionally. So for that, we go to edit mode, select the top surface, switch on proportional editing, and then scale it down. Use your mouse middle button or wheel to increase the strength of the proportional editing, and scale it down until it looks like this. So you can see all those the circles around it. I think it looks good now. Another thing we need to do is adding loop cuts to this cylinder. So let's just add a bunch of loop cuts. And then exit the edit mode, shade smooth this one as well. Now one thing we need to do is to join these two together. If I select the cylinder and then the other one and Control J or right click join, that's how it should look like. And we can add type. I kind of like to add another loop cut here at the bottom so it doesn't mess up with the, and then maybe another one to the top. Move it. Actually, I think we don't need that top one, so let's get rid of it. Okay, we can delete those, and if we just select that, press F to fill that. Okay, now we need to bend this to have a, kind of like a following a curve. Let's move this to the side and then add a Bezier curve. Rotate 90 degree by x-axis and 90 by y. And move it up. And then we go to edit mode and pick a shape that give it a look that you like. Okay, here's my curve, and make sure when you are editing, you're in the edit mode, the proportional, the scaling that we switched on for the previous shape is switched off, otherwise you're gonna have a difficult time. So now we need to make this shape follow that curve. To do that, we add another modifier called curve. We're applying the modifier to our cylinder, not to the curve. And then we pick that curve, the Bezier curve that we have, as our curve object. So it should nicely follow that. If things look distorted or kind of off, make sure you apply. So if you go here and apply all the transforms, both to the curve and to your cylinder object. I would try it first without doing that. I don't know how this thing works, but sometimes it gets messed up. If it was messed up, then do the transformation, apply the transformations. And if you like the shape and if you're not gonna change it later, then you can also apply this modifier and be done with it. Okay, now I like to use the same the torus that we edited for the bottom and then for the top, for the neck, but I would like to edit them a little bit, so I'm gonna make a copy here. For this one I like to make it a bit thicker and larger, like that, for the bottom. You can go to the top view and wireframe if you want to make sure it fits nicely, or maybe I should make it a little bit larger here. And then similar for the top one, but for this one I want to scale it along x-axis, but then make it smaller in all the other directions. Okay, and then we'll probably end up giving it different material, so it would be more distinct from the rest of it. Maybe this one should go down a bit. Yep. Okay, then not too bad. Okay, now I like to add the head. It's a geometrical shape that I'm not sure what it's called, like an octahedral, hexagonal, but we can make it from a cube. Make sure you've saved your file. If you want to be organized, you can rename your objects so they'd be easier to select and find. But let's move the center to here. If we just go here, Shift S, cursor to selected. Okay, and now Shift A to add a cube. To our cube, if you go to edit mode, and let's add 3 loop cuts in the middle. Loop cuts are Control R, or you can find them on the left side menu. And then let's pick the top surface, switch the symmetry along the z-axis on, so it would apply to both. Whatever we do to the top, it applies it to the bottom as well. And then again, switch on proportional editing. This time let's use this one, root, and then scale down to look something like that. And then back to edit. We are still in edit mode, just make sure we are looking at it. If you select everything and just scale along the z-axis a bit, move up, just look at it to see if you like the size. I would say a little bit taller. Bacteriophages, they have a fairly large head, so, and we want to show DNA, like a nucleic acid material inside, so we want to have enough space. I would say this is good. Yeah. Okay. Now add subdivision surface. No, not yet. I forgot to add loop cuts because this geometry doesn't have, it's a very simple mesh. We need to add loop cuts to it. So let's do a few here, a few this direction, and then some here, 7, and then to the middle. Now if we add subdivision surface, it should look better. And we can also shade it smooth or auto smooth. I think smooth is good. And then let's increase this. I think it looks good. Okay. Okay, now I want to add some nucleic acid or like a DNA material inside the head. I'm going to use the same technique that I used in one of the early videos that I made on how to add a DNA, how to make a 3D model of a DNA. Let's go to wireframe view so we can see inside this, and then add a Bezier curve. And can rotate it. Now you can edit this Bezier curve and give it a shape that you like your DNA or your nucleic acid to look like. You can just go to edit mode, and to add another handle you can use E on your keyboard, and then just move it around and shape it the way you like it. So this is how mine look like, and we can edit it later. So then go to geometry node editor and create a new input and output node. For this DNA model, we need a plugin, an add-on called molecular nodes, which I used in the previous tutorials. If you don't have it, you can just go to the preferences and in the add-ons menu look for molecular nodes and activate it. So we'll go to the DNA menu and add a DNA double helix, and then DNA bases. We'll connect bases to bases. You can start, you see things are happening. And then another one we need is sphere cycle. Okay, so it should start looking better. If we hide this cube for now so you can see inside better. Okay, and then we can change the colors later. But one thing I like to do is to decrease the radius of the spheres. To like that. We can add I'm gonna do the material and shading later, but we can just make this material a bit transparent so we can see inside of it. Anyway, so that would be our DNA. Now we need to make the legs. Let's bring back the cursor to the center with Shift and C, and then add a UV sphere, and then move it to the side so we can work on it here. We can probably make it a little bit smaller. Then let's duplicate it, move it along the x-axis again, move it to the top a little bit, make it smaller, maybe like that, and then duplicate again, move it again, bring it down, well, maybe here, and make her smaller. What I'm going to do is basically I'm going to try to connect these three spheres with a tube that would serve as the foundation for the leg, and then take it to sculpting to give it a more organic shape. So, and then one thing we need to do, make sure these are all one shape joined. So Control J or right click join, so they're all like now one object. Go to edit mode. So if I get a view like this. I'm sorry. I think what I want is to select those and use loop tool circle. If you don't see loop tool, when you right click, go to the edit add-ons or plugins and look for loop tools and then circle. I can make it a bit smaller and maybe moving like that. And then I'm gonna delete the faces. And I would need to do something similar here, but maybe this time from the bottom half. So that you can imagine, like if you draw an imaginary line, where would it end up? Like that. Yeah, that should be good. Again, loop tools, circle, and I want to move it a little bit outside, and then I'm gonna delete them. So next thing, make sure you're on, this time instead of face selection, you are on edge selection, number 2, or this button here. Hold down Alt and click on that, on one of those edges, so we make sure we select all of them. And then hold down Shift and repeat the same thing on this side. So now we have both of those selected, and then right click, bridge, edge loops. It looks a little bit messed up. I might have made a mistake somewhere. Okay, I fixed it. My mistake was that on one side I had 16 edges. On the other side, I had 14 edges. So when it wanted to bridge the edges, it messed up the mesh. So you need to have equal number of edges on each side. To see how many edges you have, we can switch on the statistics here. So when you select it, you can see here on this left corner. And the way to get similar number of edges is that when I was making the loop cut, on one side I selected 16 faces and did a circle loop cut. On the other one I had 12 or 14. So just like select the same number of squares and then cut, shape them as a circle. So I'm gonna repeat the same thing on the other side, and then for this one I would just get a bit of an extension on along the z-axis downward. Okay, so this is how it looks like, and before we do anything else, let's add some loop cuts here. And then some on this side. And some to this one. For this one, I basically dragged some of the bottom surfaces down and then scaled it a little bit. Okay, here shade is smooth, and then add a subdivision surface. See how well we can add. And now if we just take this to, so there are few ways of making this more organic. We can add a displace modifier. We just decrease the value, say 0.2, and go to texture, add probably a Stucci texture to it. It's way too much, so I'm just gonna increase this. I think it's better. We're going back and play with the strength. So between the strength and the size, so find the balance of a, you know, a look that you like. And then this thing is still very, what's the word, very rough. So then I will go to the sculpting mode and use the brushes here to change the shape to make it look more organic. The major tools we need here, shortcuts on the keyboard, is F to increase or decrease the size of your brush, Shift F to change its intensity. It goes from all the way from 0 to 1. I kind of like to keep it somewhere in the middle. And major brushes we can use, well, this one, grab or elastic deform or snake hook, you can use those to just move, shift, basically move your mesh or drag it. This is where I was saying we can fix this in the sculpting, because now I can drag this a little bit like that. I still think this displace modifier is probably too much. I will go and change the intensity later. So that's one you can use. And then blob is to add blobs, basically, bumps and blobs. I would use it if, you know, you can use it instead of the displace modifier, instead of the Stucci texture. It would probably do the same thing. And then smooth for smoothing out, maybe like this part. So these are the main ones. I think what I need to do is using the grab or snake hook and just move this, and blob or this one, what is that, inflate, to make part of the legs like more larger in size and part smaller, so just give it a more organic shape. All right, so this is how mine look like. If we go back to the layout, now we can scale it, actually apply scale, set origin to geometry, and then just move it and place it we need them to kind of sticking out of this bottom disc here. I like them to be a bit large and exaggerated, so it kind of looks like an alien blending, something like that. And you can use the rotate tool, rotate, I think it's the Y here, to like that. And basically duplicate this 5-6 times and place them around it. And then you don't want all of them to look like each other, so for each of them you can go back to a sculpting mode and move it a little bit, so it just looks, they look different from each other. Okay, so this is mine, and if you go to shader view, that's how it looks like. What I did is just I duplicated the legs and then I modified each of them a little bit in a sculpting mode. One thing I don't like is that they're too close to the other ring, so maybe I just move everything a little bit further down, maybe. So next I want to add those the spikes that are at the bottom. That should be fairly straightforward. Let's first add a disc here, because this thing is kind of, or if we get we need the spikes to be attached to somewhere, so we can either make them long enough that they would be up there, or just add a plate somewhere here. Maybe we can just, if you select this one, Shift S cursor to selected, and then add a circle, make it a smaller. If we go to edit mode, okay, this one, and then press F to fill basically what it does is that between the selected vertices or edges, it creates a face. So if we go back to solid view, now that's how it looks like, and then bring it down a little bit here. Okay, now to this we're gonna add the spikes. So again, Shift S to cursor to selected. Just add a yeah, I'm not sure why that's the case, but doesn't matter. We can convert a cylinder to cone. Solid view, the top, let's go to edit mode, select the bottom surface and use proportional editing to just do that. Okay, now to this one we're gonna add loop cuts, and I think the easiest way to edit this would be if we can also add a subdivision surface. Now we go to edit mode, and if I add a loop cut here, and then if we just select these vertices and move them a little bit, we can either use proportional editing or just regular editing, and okay, we go back to, then we can shade it smooth. Okay, that's, I think, is good enough. And then move it up, and then we basically need like 3 or 4 of these, and then you can either in a sculpting mode or in just regular edit mode change them a little bit so they don't look like each other. You can also scale them, like some larger, some taller. Use your imagination. Now we need to make the spikes for the neck. We can either use the same technique as what we did for the legs, but this time I want to try something a little bit different. So I just added a curve, keep the curve here, and then add a cylinder. So move it here, rotate it the other way. Okay, scale it down. And I would scale it along the y-axis, make it a bit taller like that. And then if you go to edit mode, select the surface and delete it. Sorry, this face, yeah. Then go to edge select mode and select this, alt select all the edges. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use E on my keyboard, E plus Y, to extrude along the y-axis just a tiny bit, and then use S on your keyboard to scale it. Make sure your proportional editing is off. If it's on from before, it's going to mess up with your editing. And then this time do the same thing a little bit longer, and then again like that, and just keep doing this. I'm not being really accurate here, So they have different length. I think it's fine. So we just create a something that looks like a fragmented spike. The idea is just to have more texture. And then scale down the last one and press F to fill that cap. Now if you go back to object mode, similar to what we did for the core, if you remember, you can also shade the smoothest. We're gonna add a curve modifier and make it follow this curve. So if I will move there and see it follows the curve. If we want to make it smoother, we can go to edit mode, add loop cuts. And then you can also edit the shape of the curve. Yeah, see, it's much smoother. You can also, if you probably shade flat, shade auto smooth, that might be nicer. You can also add, I'm going to try to save everything before I add subdivision surface. Maybe not, because it kind of loses the texture. Shade smooth is probably better. I think it looks good. So if you edit the shape of the curve, the shape of this thing is gonna change. So what you can do is now duplicate this, edit it so you make sure they look a little bit different from each other in size or in the shape of the curve, and then place 4 or 5 of them around the neck. Whenever if you're happy with the curve, you can also just apply it and be done with it. Okay, I'll let you do that. All right, now I think we have all the elements that we need. I just like to add a bit of a plane at the bottom. I want to move the phage up a little bit, but one thing I noticed is that if I select everything, you can use A to select everything, and I use G and Z to move it up, somehow my DNA explodes for some reason. I don't know why does that happen, but the way to prevent it is, it's because of this node here, the prim DNA, that generates when we generate the DNA molecule, and if I delete it, it's going to delete the DNA molecule. There's something going on there that I'm not sure what's the reason, but the way to prevent this is that basically if we, let's move back things here, if you just select everything except this one, so this thing shouldn't move basically. So if you select everything, shift select to get everything except that collection, the DNA collection here, and then move it up. It will be the same if you want to rotate your DNA on the plane we're gonna create. So it will be just select everything except that cluster, that collection here, prim DNA. Okay, so now it's up, and let's add, I want to show you this cool thing that I like very much. Is a plugin called Landscape. If you go to edit, preference, it's an extension, I think it's called Landscape, ANT Landscape. So just activate that one, and then here when you press Shift A, you should see on the mesh menu, you're going to see this one, Landscape. So I'm going to add that. You've got to zoom in to see it. And there are different type of landscape you can choose. I like the train, this one, and you can change the noise, or there's a lot of settings here. You can change the depth of it. Let's see if I decrease the depth. There's so much you can do here. And then you can, this one is a cool one actually too. I'll go with Perlin. Yeah, so first pick the settings that you like, and then we're gonna scale it. And then that's cool actually. Need to rotate the DNA. So when you set up your camera frame however you like it, then for your final image, and then just rotate and place everything to get the scene that you like before rendering it. So the next thing would be shading and lighting and material. I'm not gonna, because this is gonna get too long if I do all of that step by step with you, but I'm gonna do mine, and you can get creative and add any material and lighting that you like, and then I show you my final version and quickly tell you what setup I use. Okay, so I played with the material and light and made some adjustments, and I ended up with this. To quickly tell you what I did for the head, I chose basically a transparent material by just using the principal BSDF and lowering the roughness and alpha value until you get a transparent look that you can see the DNA inside it. And you need to set up some lights around it for the glow. And then for the body and for the legs, I used again the principal BSDF, but I switched on the subsurface scattering to give it and I chose this one, random walk skin, that gives it kind of like a skin look, lowering the roughness, alpha value. You can basically look at this values that I have here. And what else? I also set up 2 empty plane axes, one at the bottom, one for the head, for the camera depth of focus. So right now I have it on the top one, but if I switch it to the bottom one, you see the bottom will get in focus, and the top, so wherever the empty is, that's part of the object is going to be in focus. That's just for my rendering later. I also set up some an emitter, like a particle emitter, to set up some bokeh light, which we've done in the previous tutorial, so you can use the same one. And then just playing with the light and colors. One thing I tested and I liked was this thing. I have my viewport sampling on a low one, so the file loads quickly, but it will be sharper when I render the final image. I added a hair particle system to the legs, so make the legs hairy. I thought it would look more interesting. And then I set up a light here. That's pretty much it. So we go back to this view, then you can just zoom in and get different do different rendering as you like it, but it will look like this. It's kind of like an alien. I hope you enjoyed it.